If I told you Watchers of Rule by Unearth was their 6th album, well, okay, you'd probably believe me. And it's true. And most of you have probably followed this band pretty much ever since they came out, all depending on your age. I know that I have. Whenever this band first burst onto the scene, it was due to the fledgling and glorious kind of invention of metalcore, something that really came forward with bands such as Killswitch Engage, and Unearth being one of the bands that certainly was taking the helm as one of the forefront leaders as well, with subsequent albums such as The Oncoming Storm really performing exceptionally well. A couple of years ago we talked about their last album, Darkness in the Light, and it was one of those albums that, now that metalcore is about, 10 years old, we need an album every so often that sort of revitalizes our faith in the genre. And we've gotten a couple of those over the course of the past couple of years, kind of reminding us that the best purveyors of this genre, of this style, are still some of the originators. With Watchers of Rule, which immediately makes me think of Disciples of the Watch, Obey, it's definitely another case that can be made about the longevity, the longitude, wrong word, of metalcore and just exactly what it's able to really give to all of us. This is definitely a genre that, if this was a little bit more where some bands started to lean, as opposed to going preeminently just in deathcore, which is the hot button core right now, and which is also subsiding, I really think that this would be a very large genre. But it may feel a little overpopulated if that were to happen, kind of like how it was directly after the initial boom of bands such as this one. This right here is the deluxe edition of it. There's 13 tracks on this. The basic album has 11 tracks, which is about par for the course for an Unearth album. One of the best descriptions that I have ever heard of Unearth actually came in a review from a couple of years ago, and it said that Unearth is a band that has all of the style and all of the melody of the Gothenburg melodic death metal scene, but has the aggression and the grooves of Pantera. And I think that's really a fitting description of this group. It's one that is actually one of the most accurate, because whenever you hear that raw and intense, kind of breakdown of everything, that's where the Pantera really starts to come out, and the grooves that are present there definitely remind you of the band as well. But whenever you're talking about their guitar work, whenever you're talking about their basic framework, the basic structure of some of their songs, there are a lot of glints of the Gothenburg scene. And that's something that you hear on Watchers of Rule. That's the thing. When reviewing an Unearth album, you really don't have to say much to people who are longtime fans of this band, or at least know of their work. Because Unearth does not stylistically have to do much with their sound in order to manifest and create a halfway competent album. Unearth have very talented musicians that are really able to hone into this style and really focus it well enough to design great metalcore music. But for those who are really kind of new to the fold, maybe for those who are going to become Unearth fans because of this video and this album, I feel as though I need to give you a little bit more than that. I feel as though I need to describe a little bit more what Unearth has kind of been able to do throughout the course of their 6 album career, and what makes this any different than anything else. With the beginning portions of their career, this sound was new, this sound was everywhere, this sound is similar to deathcore, where anybody who was getting into metal at that time was really getting into metalcore. They were getting into bands like Unearth, Killswitch Engage, As I Lay Dying, etc. 6 albums later, this is a band that's able to kind of fine-tune that sound. They're one that's able to really find a way in order to kind of pervade the metalcore sound and give it a little bit more animation, kind of give it a little bit more character, a little bit more heart to it. That combination of Gothenburg and Pantera really is what leads to the real individuality of this band, because it gives it lush melody, but while still maintaining a high level of aggression. Think about the At the Gates record that we just talked about. Think about all of that melody mixed with the really aggressive vocals. That album just has splashed all over it. Now, take Pantera, take their core aggressiveness, take their heaviest moments, their very bass and guitar driven moments, and throw those two together, and this is what you got. This is what Unearth is able to deliver, and they do so with a lot of power. There's a lot of low end on this album. Whenever you hear the high-end guitars, they kind of weed and whine over top of the thick bass and the drum that kind of pervades in the background. And whenever you hear the vocals, it's something that kind of thrusts forward as kind of a secondary level to the low end. However, it's higher than that, so it provides what would be a very complex and strange middle ground for everything. So overall, the mix on this is perfect, as per usual for an Unearth record. That's not something that we've ever really questioned. It's really the material that we need to speak about. One thing I have to say is that track number 5, From the Tombs of Five Below, immediately made me think of the Five Below stores that are cropping up across the nation, and it just kind of made me, from the tombs of Five Below. Does that mean that Five Below, there's tombs underneath the store, and things are coming up from these tombs? They're rising again. Maybe it's an Indian burial ground, or maybe the Walking Dead is real, or maybe, just maybe, they actually mean themselves. They came from the tombs of Five Below. They were in a Five Below store, and they were told to leave, and they refused to leave. So the Five Below employees killed Unearth and buried them underneath one of the stores, but Unearth didn't stay dead. They literally unearthed themselves from the tombs of Five Below, and now walk again, and now are making music again, as opposed to eating brains and causing general havoc. I love the fact that this album flows so seamlessly, all jokes aside. I love the fact that from one track to the next, it almost feels like it's one long album, mainly because their style really provides very well for doing such a thing. Their style allows for seamless transition from track to track, and that's something that you get with this. And really the highlights of this disc are whenever they're able to kind of escape the tendencies to have their more aggressive moments kind of border a little bit along the lines of deathcore, but not really. You know, it's one of those things where it's kind of a halfway medium, which is something that metalcore and deathcore have possessed ever since the start, really. Whenever metalcore decides to employ breakdowns, it's something where it's sort of trended toward a deathcore, so it's logical that that's the progression that things have taken. It's more whenever they're able to really expand things, solo out, and really deliver just very high-powered, high-energy moments, as opposed to the ones where they really kind of rely on the chugga-chugga, where they rely on that chugga-chugga, because I feel like Unearth is a band that has such a power and raw energy that the chugga-chugga is not something that they really necessarily need, aside from the basic concept of the live enterprise. The basic concept of having this be the moment where everybody just goes fucking nuts, as opposed to whenever they are soloing hard, where everyone's going to be staring at the vocal or the guitar player, either that or just kind of, you know, emerging from a wall of death, or just, you know, hanging out, all depending on what you do. The deluxe version is the version to get, because it features a Slayer cover on it. It features a cover of Spirit in Black, and the nice part about this is that they provide you the lyrics of every song on this album, with the lone exception of that one. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this, but I'm going to actually spoil it for you, because all they do is put Slayer! Slayer! I thought that was a really cool thing, so sue me if you don't think it is. Really, really good cover. This is a cover that I felt was very true to the original. It was one that Unearth was able to encapsulate into their own style, while not really treading that far away from what Slayer was able to do with the song in the first place. And that's really the makeup of a great cover. You're able to use your own unique voice, but you don't forget the voice of the band who created it. It's that nice, fine line in the middle, that difficult area to tread. And they tread it. They tread it. They walked right down the line. And they did it beautifully. All in all, Unearth just continues to release really solid albums. They're enjoyable. They have replay value. They flow very, very nicely. They execute. It feels like they execute with every song. This is an album that I just popped into my car recently to go to the gas station and get some gas. And I enjoyed the album so much, and I was having such a good time listening to this release, that I actually took a drive that was completely unscheduled just so I could complete the whole entire album, as opposed to maybe just having it sit down there with track number 4 being the one that would be queued up the next time that I turn my key. that's the kind of album that this is. It's so enjoyable that you actually want to go out of your way to listen to it a little bit. And that's where the replay value really comes in. It's where the replayability is massive on this disc, as it has been with many Unearthed discs in the past. What do you guys think? What did you guys think about Watchers of Rule? I myself personally give it an 82 out of 100. I love it. It's a really solid disc. Unearth is definitely a band that it's very difficult to determine what you would think their best album is. I still am a big fan of The Oncoming Storm. It was my first experience. Zombie Autopilot is the song that I always go to if I want an Unearth song. But what do you guys think about this disc? What do you think about Unearth in general? Let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys sooner than you think. This is a huge week for metal releases, and I'm going to try my damnedest to get to as many of them as possible. I have like 8 in mind. Fuck.